Very pleased today to have with us Glenn Bloomstrom. He's our Director of Faith Leader Engagement. Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Michelle. Nice to see you.
So nice to see you. We're going to talk today about the National Weekend of Prayer. It's coming up this weekend. It's exciting. It's an important weekend, I think, for the faith community to talk about suicide. So, can you tell us a little bit about the National Weekend of Prayer?
Absolutely. Well, let me just say a little bit about structure. So there's a national strategy, and part of the U.S. national strategy involves a group of people that make things happen, and that's called the National Alliance for Suicide Prevention. And they have a number of task forces. I'm a member of one of those, and it's called the Faith Communities Task Force. And so this will be the third year, I think, that we've had a national emphasis for the National Weekend of Prayer. Now, this isn't a big prayer weekend with speakers and a large agenda, but really what it is we're asking clergy and faith leaders to make a commitment to pray in their worship services, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and in their time where the faith leader or the pastor has a pastoral prayer, they really would like that prayer to include those who have suffered from suicide, who have lived experience, or loved ones who've died by suicide. And basically, all that does is it supports people of faith with lived experience. And it recognizes that suicide is part of the human condition that God cares about. And it may even encourage more involvement and engagement in suicide prevention.
So, Glenn, let's talk about why and how, I guess, faith communities can be such an important part, in the bigger picture of suicide prevention.
Well, I think all of our national strategy developers and leaders and LivingWorks believes that churches and faith communities are key partners to getting people help and saving lives threatened by suicide. They're a large group of the US population, with almost 48% of people in North America saying that they worship at least monthly. So that's a large group of people. And most of the strategies include faith leaders, but there's just not a lot out there that's being done with faith leaders. And I think a lot of community strategists and community members that are and nonprofits that are very committed to suicide prevention don't know how to engage faith leaders.
Mm-hmm. So we're putting in the comments the direct link to the National Weekend of Prayer for Faith, Hope, and Life. If people want to go and get more information, they're actually being encouraged, Glenn, to kind of, sign up your congregation. It's almost a statement, I guess, if you will, saying, we all join together on this weekend virtually, because that's what we have to do these days.
Absolutely, Michelle. And if people who are listening to this right now would talk to their faith leaders and say, Pastor, Rabbi, Imam, would you pray this weekend? And would you commit our congregation to making a commitment to pray for people with lived experience? And we have a link, I believe, here on our Facebook Live to a website that has suggested prayers and liturgies and ideas and ways to help within the faith community. Right.
That's super helpful, because sometimes people may struggle with what to say or how to approach it. So there's lots of resources there for them. That kind of brings us to another point, Glenn, that we wanted to delve into. The topic of suicide in the church is sometimes a bit of a difficult subject. Let's talk about what gets in the way, I guess, for clergy when talking about suicide.
Absolutely. And you're spot on, Michelle. Suicide is a very uncomfortable topic because it's just so mysterious for all of us and even helpers. It's what's really amazing is even professionals are not trained as they could be or should be in having these kinds of conversations and overcoming that that fear. And so I would imagine, and we know from research, that it's even harder for people of faith. If you believe, if you have a strong faith, uh, most people of faith believe you'll never have thoughts of suicide. But yet, when we read in the pages of sacred scripture, we know from the Judeo Christian background, the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and the New Testament have references to suicide. Suicide is a part of being human. And so, a lot of church history, which then evolved into law, have influenced deep stigma. So there's stigma about the topic, but individuals, it's a frightening thing when someone ends their own life. So consequently, we really want leaders and people of faith with lived experience to speak to their faith leaders about training, because with effective training, we can reduce or eliminate those barriers that come up from stigma.
And I think that's a really important point that sometimes all of us stumble over. We think perhaps, well, I'm not a psychologist or I'm not a professional counselor. You know, how can I help someone who's in crisis or thinking about suicide? But I think the good news there, Glenn, we don't all need, you know, a master's degree. We just need some really great training. And LivingWorks, of course, has been the leader in that regard. And tell us a little bit about LivingWorks Faith. It's a new program I know you've been working on for many, many years.
Yes.
Due to come out soon, we hope. Give us a little sneak peek if you can.
Yes. Well, thank you, Michelle. Faith is a 4 to 6 hour online training. So it's only as long as how much you want to put into it. It's online, and it's training for clergy and faith leaders, but also for ministry leaders, volunteers, and helpers. Because LivingWorks believes that there are many natural helpers in our communities. And one of the most natural helpers are clergy and faith leaders. So we've focused a lot of energy and time. We went through 3 iterations of development. And this last iteration, we interviewed 12 to 15 faith leaders. We have a veteran, and we have people with lived experience, people of faith who've lost loved ones. And they tell their story of what their clergy and faith leaders did right. And the clergy and faith leaders talk about what it was like to not be prepared. So the video interviews are we wrap the content around the video interviews. And the interviews make the training very compelling, real, and interesting. And so a part of that 4 to 6 hours includes a 90-minute LivingWorks Start. We believe at LivingWorks that Start is the fundamental, and that's why it's called Start. It's kind of like the CPR, the essentials that are skill-based, where you can develop that confidence to know how to intervene. So that's a part of LivingWorks Faith. And it covers 3 areas. First, life promotion, all of the things that the clergy and faith leaders and churches and faith communities do right that promote life. Then suicide intervention, again using START, and then funerals, memorials, and long-term care following suicide behaviors. So that's LivingWorks Faith, and it's our hope that we can have this integrated into seminaries and training institutions that train leaders, but also have it a part for volunteers and for those that might interact and be, you know, those first responders within the faith community, so that they know how to do all those things in a very confident way, in an informed way, from all of this wisdom from the people that we've interviewed.
It's going to be a great program. I know we're all super excited for it to be out there. And, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking, yes, for pastors and leaders in the church, but even, you know, people who run maybe a men's Bible study or youth ministries, right? We know that youth and teen suicide is another problem area. So many applications. And we're including a link to it right here, livingworks.net/faith. You can check it out. Glenn, any parting words or wisdom you'd like to share with us as we head into this special weekend?
Well, for everyone who's online right now or who's going to watch this interview later, thanks for your interest, first and foremost, in clergy and faith leaders and in churches and faith communities. Check out our LivingWorks programs and you become a catalyst in your community to engage clergy and faith leaders to save lives. We're all in this together. Suicide is everyone's business. So thanks for taking the time, and please tell others about these resources because we are very serious about trying to build confidence, to overcome stigma, and get people out there doing good.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Glenn, for taking the time out of your busy day and joining us on Facebook. And thanks to everybody who tuned in today. We'll chat with you.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Michelle. Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.